So, back with another little story from my adventures in Australia when I was working offshore. I posted a little story yesterday about Australian immigration and customs, and it didn't go down too well with a guy called Geco Eagle 22. He had a little pop and seemed to have got upset by it. Anyway, this one's for you, Stevo Vivo 22. So back into Australia again. This time we were on the west coast in the Indian Ocean, and it was on the Geco Eagle. And now on most of the vessels that I've worked on, there's always a Filipino crew. And Filipinos are really hard workers. They're usually the deck crew. They're usually the guys who do basically all the shit work. And on the Geco Triton, where I was working for a couple of years, there was a brilliant Filipino crew, and I got to know them all very well. Because I would check safety stuff for them and do toolbox talks in the morning up on the bridge with the captain and the heads of each department. Anyway, again, we flew into, I think it was Melbourne this time. I had managed to not hide my contraband and to declare my protein powders and the fitness stuff that I was bringing in, creatine, etc. So no fine there. But still, and I'm not having a pop at Australians. I have loads of Australian friends. I travelled Australia, and I was fortunate enough to work on some of the ships that I worked on in Australia with some brilliant Australian crew. Okay, I'm only going by my own experiences. Now, as a medic on the ships, we usually have the shittiest quarters. Okay, so my cabin was down at the bow, and it was the fucking in hell basically, and it was the shittiest little cabin, and it was the bow, and it was an odd shape. Okay, and that's where we usually put, or the medics usually put, because when I did my handover with another medic, that's where they went. Okay, and it was just shit accommodation. So anyway, but the Geco Eagle was a lot bigger than the Geco Triton, the first vessel I was on, and the deck space outside was phenomenal. Okay, you could play basketball on it, you could do loads of fitness exercises. Some of the guys even played football. They put up extended nets, and it was really good. And it was also where the helicopter landed. So this particular incident, okay, got through customs really well. Okay, but they still grill you. They still try to pick on something. They still try to find something that they can just fucking make you angry about. Okay, I don't know if it's their training or just their nature. Still a bunch of fucking pricks anyway. Anyway, so flew into Melbourne, cleared customs, and then we waited a couple of hours, and then we took another flight over to Perth. Okay, hoteled a couple of days in Perth, just to get over jet lag, and also to be drug tested, piss tested again. And we flew up to a place called Broome. Stayed over Broome one night, and then we flew off to Barrow Island, where we picked a chopper and we choppered off to the vessel. Fantastic, everything went great, no dramas. Okay, the crew on the Geco Eagle were a lot of the crew that had originally been on the Geco Triton. Okay, some of the Filipinos. Again, it was a woodside employment for the ship's vessel, etc. And we were going to be heading into the Indian Ocean to do seismic investigations. We were a 3D seismic vessel. So the first couple of days on the steam, I remember getting supplies, and there was a big HLO guy called Paul, and Paul HLO was the helicopter landing officer. So he was in charge of making sure that the deck was clear for the chopper to land, and just to make sure that there was nothing He would call it in, bring it down, land it, and everything. The med center on the Geco Eagle was on the bow, okay, and it was one of the biggest medical centers that I had ever worked in as a medic on board a ship or a rig. I remember there being 10 beds, 5 on each side. There was a main door out through onto the deck, onto the HLO deck, and also on the right hand side was a little pathway outside that took you directly onto the deck as well. So my handover medic was a girl called Nikki. Nikki was lovely, and a little Australian girl. She was absolutely lovely, and so she'd already been on the vessel for her 3 weeks, and then I came on, and then she did a handover with me while I was still on the vessel before she left on the helicopter to go back home. So anyway, I remember going into the medical center. Nikki did a handover with me, showed me where everything was, and then we got a call saying that the chopper was landing, and can the team, the outside helicopter deck team, get ready to bring the chopper in. So anyway, these guys were all prepped and ready outside. I was in the medical center. There had been a couple of patients from Nikki's shift. One of them was quite ill, so he was hooked up to fluids, and they were getting ready to transport him off. I had no dealings with the guy. I was just looking at his medical stuff, and he just had a burst appendix, or something wrong with his appendix, inflamed appendix. And Nikki had kept him safe and everything in the medical center, and had medicated him and was ready to get him off. So anyway, that was all fine and dandy. The HLO didn't bother to come and speak to me about anything. So he just, as the chopper landed, he just bursts in through the door and decides to walk his muddy boots all in through the medical center. And that fucking really pissed me off. So I stopped the guy in his tracks, and it was like looking up at a mountain. And I stopped him and I asked him what he was doing. And he said that he was getting the patient ready to be transported out. And I just says, well, you didn't correlate with me over anything. You didn't come and tell me that this was happening. You're supposed to come to the medic. You're supposed to let us know. And you haven't done that. I said, so I'll just tell you what you do now. You just backtrack and you go out through those main doors and you come in through the side door. I says, because you've just fucking brought mud and dirt and shit and everything into a clean medical center. And the guy just stood there in his tracks, and his face went red and his eyes started to bulge. And he just started to really kick off to me. Oh, you medics are all assholes. You fucking think this and you think that and you think the other. I said, there's nothing to do with that. I said, the fact is that you didn't come and speak to me about your operations and let me know what you was going on. I said, there's nothing ready. I said, the patient isn't ready to leave. I said, so we just can't root this guy out of bed. I said, he's hooked up to fluids. We need to get this guy prepped and ready to go. You haven't done anything. So he just stood there shaking and quivering, and I just told him to leave the medical center. I said, you're in my medical center, and you just need to leave. The patient was okay. He was prepped. He was okay. He wasn't prepped to leave, obviously. But he was he was in good condition. I checked him over, checked his stats and vitals and everything, and he was fine. He wasn't in pain. Nikki had basically sedated him, and but the guy just wasn't ready to go. So anyway, the guy storms out like a stormtrooper from a Star Wars movie, just like Frankenstein basically. And he storms out and he slams the door behind him, and he fucking disappears. And the next thing, then he comes down with the skipper, the master of the vessel. And I knew Arna. He was from the Geco Triton. So him and I got on very well as on board the vessel. Everything was on. Arna spoke very slowly, very methodically. He was a really nice guy, and he listened to everything before he spoke. So I explained the situation to Arna, and he agreed with me. He agreed that there was no communication between Paul, the HLO, myself as a medic, So we didn't have time to prep this patient to go on the chopper, which was going to take more time now. Anyway, so Paul stood frozen in time. He couldn't speak. He was livid. He was shaking. I don't think that he was used to anybody just basically, you know, telling him no. One, the sheer size of him, and two, he was just an arrogant bastard anyway. But with me, that didn't work. So the lines of communication failed. The machine broke down, and the cogs didn't start turning. So again, he fucking storms out of the medical center and slams the door. I looked at Arnold. The place was just covered in dirt. He sat down on one of the beds, and there was oil and everything all over his. And he did this for sheer badness. He sat down on one of the beds and just covered the white sheets in oil. And Anna kind of calmed the situation down, and you know, just told me to stand by and just to wait and just to prep the patient to go, and he would go and speak to him. So Anna left, and I just started prepping the guy to go. Nikki took the sheets off the bed, re-changed the sheets, bagged them for laundry, and we mopped and cleaned the floor and disinfected everything down. And yeah, I'll continue the saga in a little while. It gets better.